Alright everybody, it's Saturday morning and we're going to do a little round the world update here. Not a lot going on this week yet anyway, so this is probably going to be a fairly short video, but I did want to get this out there just because I got a busy weekend and I don't know how much I'm going to get done, so I can at least do this and get you all caught up with what has been going on this week. Not anything going on in this tank as usual. I might get around to doing a water change today. I'm hoping today is going to be my stay inside and get some stuff done day today. This is my 29-gallon miscellaneous tank, and as usual, it's just kind of ticking over like a clock. Nothing really going on in there. I did put these temple plant in there not long ago that I'd taken from another tank, and because this is inert substrate and there is very little lighting in this tank, it's just sort of a low-budget LED hood. This is one of those kind of starter kits that came from a big chain store, and it has the LEDs inlaid in the hood, and it's enough to make it a nice pretty looking tank, but it's not really a lot of light for a planted tank. And what's more important is that it's a lot less light than the plants were getting, and I'm talking specifically about this cluster right here. And you can see how it's sort of paled out. A lot of the leaves look like they've sort of melted a little bit, as you will get sometimes, and then of course you can see a lot of the leaves have found their way to the filter intake. So I don't know whether that's going to last and adjust to the new conditions, or whether that's just going to fade away and eventually I'll wind up pulling it out of there. This one back here is another one that I planted in there recently that I took out of my gourami tank, and it looks like it's doing okay. I know it's lost some leaves, but it actually doesn't look like it's doing too bad. So that's all that's really going on in this tank. Just kind of something to point out. That's not actually new. I just figured I'd update you on the progress of those plants I put in there. This is my gourami tank where those plants came from. And if you will remember my last Round the World update, I talked about how I was going to shoot a big video and I was going to get in there and do a filter change. And well, I haven't done any of that. I haven't even done so much as a water change since then, which is what I often talk about with my tanks. I don't keep very, very sensitive fish in a lot of cases because time gets away from me and I get busy, and one day gets behind the next, and before you know it, it's been 6 or 8 days and I still have not gotten around to doing a water change. I think it's been 5 or 6 days since I said I was going to do it, and I have not yet. So this is still on my agenda. And honestly, one of the reasons I haven't gotten around to doing it is because I feel committed to making a video about doing it. If I could just get in there and do it and not hassle with it, I probably would have done it by now. But every time I start thinking about doing it, I think about getting out my head cam and getting my other camera and, you know, shooting the scenes and keeping everything organized and uploading all the different clips. And you know, it takes a water change that's already going to be a fairly big, you know, labor-intensive change with the filter change and a lot of plant grooming and everything else. And it just makes it into a whole secondary project on top of that, is making video out of the whole process. So while I enjoy doing that, I got to be in the mood to do that, and I have to want to shoot a video. And so far this week, I just have not. And every time I thought about doing it, I wouldn't mind doing the water change, but then as soon as I thought about actual video, it just became daunting, and I said, maybe I'll do it later. I'll get to it in the morning or something. So we will see how that goes. I really will get this all on video for you. Main thing I want to get on video is, once again, I know you've seen me clean out my canister filters there before, but I pick up new viewers all the time, and so it never hurts to rehash some of the basics and go over some simple stuff about filter maintenance and keeping your tank clean. I'm sure I will no doubt discuss the plants and the water chemistry and all that like I normally do with my water change videos. So that is still coming up. Look forward to it. Hopefully today I will get to working on that. It'll take a day or two to get all the video uploaded and, you know, processed and edited together and everything, but we can get started on that today, hopefully. Otherwise, nothing is going on in there. I did lose my female snakeskin gourami. If you don't know about that, I did post a video, my final update. But if these Around the World updates are your only source of updates, then I did indeed lose my female snakeskin gourami that had been ill in there for the last couple of weeks. I came down one morning and she had finally expired overnight. You know, so that's that. No more snakeskin gourami. And no, I will not be replacing her by adding another fish. This tank is way overstocked, or I won't say overstocked because I am able to manage it. It's just very, very heavily stocked. And I did recently add, you can see them swimming right across the front there. I've recently added 18 neons, which gives me a beautiful little school of neons in there, and I really enjoy it. So that is going to be the bioload. I know it's not the same amount of bioload, but the whole goal is to bring the bioload down. So now that I've lost my snakeskin, I'm just going to see that as an opportunity to not jack the bioload right back up. There's just no need to. This tank is getting really crowded as the fish have gotten to be full size. My clown loaches in there are eventually going to get very large, and they'll have to come out at some point, but they get really big, and the bioload in this tank is just going to keep climbing as the fish keep growing in there. So no, I will not be replacing my snakeskin gourami. I'm going to leave the tank sort of the way it is and just kind of let it ride, and we'll see where it goes for now. But I don't have any intentions of doing any changes to this tank at all. Just keeping on top of it, maintaining it, keeping the plants under control, and then, of course, just enjoying it and shooting lots of video of it. So moving on, I still have not done anything to my angelfish tank. I've talked about doing some work in here. Not a lot to do in here. My main goal is just to gradually get that white sand out of there. I'm not in any hurry to do it. This isn't pressing. I've got about 5 different projects I've got in my mind that I'll get to. I do want to remind you that it is summertime. I did just get a new kayak. I also just got a new boat, a John boat for fishing. So I have been out and about and doing my thing and trying to keep up on work. So I'm not spending a ton of time down here in the fish room during the day like I do when the weather is cooler and rainy and that sort of stuff. So as the summer fades and we get into the cooler weather and we get into the autumn rains and all that, you will see a lot more video coming from me. So be patient, and my massive outflow of videos will probably pick up again. I know in the wintertime I sit around bored, so I just shoot videos all day. So I look forward to that coming up over the next coming months. But for right now, I'm just kind of cruising along through the summer, and not a whole lot is changing. So nothing going on in here, no new anything to really talk about. Just figured I'd give you a look at it for a moment so you can officially see all the tanks. So moving on to my former T-bar, currently Black Ghost Knifefish tank. Can you see my reflection in the glass there, moving back and forth? That is from that light there. I've discussed that many times, how that light bleeds over the top and it causes glare and reflection. And when I do these spur of the moment type videos like this, I don't prepare for all that glare, and that's why you get it. So lighting is one of the things that I do want to talk about. I'm going to be shooting a video about lighting, and we're going to be looking at the tank we just looked at, but I'm getting ahead of myself there. Another one that nothing's really going on. Again, I haven't done anything really in the fish room this week. I'm just kind of going around sort of showing you all the tanks again, and I don't really feel like I've got anything to update you on. I've noticed my Black Ghost Knifefish out much more frequently. He doesn't come out and swim around if there's no need to, but as soon as I put food in the tank, within minutes he's out and swimming around, and he's not shy at all. In fact, he takes swipes at the other fish. I'm waiting for one of these days where I actually get him, I actually see him snagging a fish out of the water or something. I don't know if he will or not. I know he ate all the neons I put in there. There's only one left. I don't know how that one survived, but there's still one neon in there. And obviously I don't want to put any more in because it's just very expensive feeder fish if you do it that way. That Black Ghost will come out and eat those neons. So otherwise, nothing really going on in there. Don't even really need to do a water change or anything on this tank. I did do a big water change recently, and if you see this little patch of brown diatom growth, I find that I always get that now after I do large water changes. I've sort of discovered recently that the silicates in my water are what are doing that. When I do these big water changes, I'm putting a lot of silicates back in the tank, and that promotes that brown diatom algal growth. So now that I've become aware of that, I've started paying attention, and whenever I do these large water changes of maybe 35, 40%, 50%, something like that, within a few days I start noticing some of that diatom algae growth again. So this is yet another reason why it is recommended to do 10% weekly and 25% monthly water changes, and keep your bioload to a minimum so you don't have to do these massive water changes and potentially throw chemical compounds off, out of balance and everything else. And in my case, I'm adding a lot of silicates to my tank, which really promotes that diatom growth. So just a little, something I noticed, a little food for thought there. Again, not really a lot to talk about, nothing really going on. This tank, I did do a water change on this tank. I removed the plant that was in there. If you remember the last Round the World video, I had tons of cyanobacteria growing on the arrowhead plant that was in there. So I took that out and threw that away completely. I've done a water change recently. In fact, I did a water change the other day, and I've not yet actually dumped the water out. That's going to go to water some of my house plants. Yes, empty fish tank water is great for your house plants, or if you've got a garden or a flower box or something out, pour it out there. It is loaded with lots of good stuff that your plants will like. So this tank is going to get talked about a little bit when I do my video about lighting and color temperature and color spectrums and what plants need and so on and so forth. I've tried to shoot it a couple times now, and it just keeps getting really convoluted. Whenever I start talking about light and lighting, it's just a lot to talk about. It gets very difficult for me to keep it on a very concise, sort of focused point, and I wander all over the place, and it just starts getting all convoluted and confusing. So I'm going to try again, and hopefully I'll be able to stay on target a little better, and we'll get through a nice video about lighting and color temperature, and I'll sort of clear up some myths about what the color temperature actually means and what colors you need and all that kind of stuff. But it is significant to the bacterial, the cyanobacteria, and the algal growth. A lot of people think about how strong the light is and how long the duration of the light is, but not as many people think about what color spectrum you are actually putting on the plants, and that's what I want to talk about more so than anything, because it can be a little confusing and it can even be a little deceiving if you don't really know what you're looking at or what's going on. So I look forward to that video about lighting coming up real soon. My Brackish tank is still just sitting here doing its thing. Last week I did get in there and I got all that red cyanobacteria off the rocks in the bottom, and you can see now it's been a week and we've already got sheets of it growing to where I'm going to start getting the bubbling, the gas is being trapped underneath the sheets, and I'm going to start getting those bubbles developing again. I've got mats of it that are developing on the substrate. It's just really, really nasty stuff, and as I said, I've just kind of had it with this tank. I'm not really worried about fighting it anymore. I'm just kind of staying on top of it. I know that tank looks awful, but the water's clean, the water's just fine. Everybody in there is happy and healthy. That's just very unsightly. It's not actually dangerous or dirty or anything like that. I am hopefully going to be getting a new tank soon, another 20 standard, and I'm going to set that up as my new Brackish tank and just start over. I've given up. I'm not going to try to pretend that I'm going to fight this anymore or anything else. I just don't care. It was interesting at first, then it got a little frustrating, and then it just got to be annoying, and again, I've just given up. I don't care anymore. We're going to start a new tank up. And as I've said, eventually this whole end of the room right here, this whole shelf that we're looking at, is going to be one longer shelf, and I'm either going to do like a 55 or a 75 and have just one tank to sort of finalize this end of the room rather than this sort of grouping of smaller tanks. So all this is going to be changing in the near future anyway. Again, don't hold me to any kind of date timeline on that. I get around to stuff whenever I get around to it. Something will happen and I'll get motivated, and before you know it, it'll be a weekend project and I'll have a new shelf built, and so on and so forth. I do want to talk a little bit about my tiger barbs that I have in here. I have 5 tiger barbs in quarantine at the moment, or there should be 5 in there. Yeah, I can see all 5 of them. The purpose of quarantine can be 2 things. One, you can either put the fish in there untreated and then let them sit for 6 to 8 weeks and make sure nothing happens. If they die or any parasites become visible, whether they're internal or external. And that's the reason you want to leave them in there for so long, is to give any kind of disease they have time to show itself before you put them in your main tank. In this case, I have been treating these fish with Paragard, and the instructions on how to treat are a little vague. If you're just sort of treating for a precautionary, it says to use it once a day until whatever you're treating for is cleared up. So since I'm treating for potentially unknown internal or even very minor external parasites like ick, that might not even be noticeable yet, how long am I supposed to treat? I don't really know. So I did about 4 or 5 days of a once-a-day treatment of the Paragard, and they've been in there for about a week now. And I'm wondering, how long should I keep them in quarantine if they've been treated for parasites? It doesn't make sense to me to leave them sit in here for 2 months. I mean, that's like a grow-out tank at that point. It's, there's no need to quarantine them if I've treated them for parasites. So throw your 2 cents in the comment section below if you've got any, knowledge about that. I don't know if Paragard only treats for certain things and I still need to keep them quarantined just in case. Somebody might say, oh, if you've done the Paragard, they're good to go, I really don't know, but I've had some experience recently where I put some infected fish in a tank. It was not a good experience. I did shoot a series of videos on that. I actually got an ick outbreak and I lost a fish because of it. Partially due to my own negligence, but partially due to the severity of the outbreak. And ultimately, it was my own negligence. I put infected fish in the tank, and that cost me fish. So I'm really hesitant to do that again, but at the same time, My Black Ghost knifefish tank only has 3 tiger barbs in it, and I would like to bolster that school back up so I get more schooling behavior rather than the sort of disparate wandering that I get from them now. So that's the reason I'm kind of anxious to get these barbs out of quarantine and into their main tank. I just don't know whether that's safe to do so or not. So if you got any experience with Paragard or any situations like that, feel free to comment. Give me your 2 cents. I always read and listen to everybody's comments. I try to get back to everybody, but I got to get the notifications. I don't always get notifications. So if you get skipped over, it's not me ignoring you. It's me not getting your notification. Nothing at all going on in my snail tank. I'm just growing out snails. They feed my puffer, and that's about it. This tank has gotten a lot more interesting. This is my T-bar gudgeon tank, or gudgeon T-bar tank. I don't really have an official name for this tank. The playlist, I think, is gudgeon/T-bar, or something to that effect. It contains one purple spotted gudgeon that you can see is very anxious for his breakfast, and I've got the T-bar cichlid who just darted down in the back and is now excavating his caves a little more, and then I have 7 Marcy rainbow fish. Now, I've had a lot of difficulty finding information on the Marcy rainbow fish. That's M-A-R-C-I. And the last time I was at the fish store, I had a lengthy discussion with the people at the store about these Marcies. I had lost a couple of the first batch that I bought, so I was speaking with the owner and a couple of the employees there. And the general consensus was that Marcy rainbow fish are really just Parkinson's rainbows. And it's just a marketing name. Somebody's just calling them Marcy rainbows because they can sell them. There was some speculation that the Marcies were a hybrid that was the Parkinson's and something else. I think these are actually just Parkinson's rainbow fish. I don't know that for sure. I wasn't able to confirm that, but I was sold them as Marcy rainbow fish, so I'm going to probably continue calling them that. But if anybody does know anything about Marcy rainbow fish or has heard that name or whatever, let me know. I know they're still very young and immature, so even if they are Parkinson's, it would be very difficult to positively say, yes, they're absolutely Parkinson's. But if anybody does have a lot of rainbow fish experience or is very familiar with the Parkinson's, then let me know. And you can tell these are very ready for their breakfast as well. So I haven't lost any more fish since I put the 4 new ones in there. I put 5 in originally, I lost 2, and then I put 4 more back in. So I have 7 total now, and I've not lost any more since I put the 4 additional ones in. I think the 4 I lost were probably from aggression from that T-bar. He's kind of a dick. He bullies everybody around. That's why he's in this tank. I got tired of him bullying my Black Ghost knifefish around. And he's just a dick. He just bullies people around. So hopefully this tank has fish that are either fast enough to escape him, like the rainbow fish, or tough enough to withstand him, like the gudgeon. And as long as everybody keeps their distance and doesn't get too much in his way or whatever, he's not too bad. And that's just the price you pay for trying to keep a cichlid in a community tank. Cichlids are just not, they definitely do not get along well with others, or they don't play well with others, you could say. So, it is what it is. I really like this tank the way it is. I'm not really concerned about the level of aggression I see. That T-bar's not that bad. He's no worse than he was in my Black Ghost knifefish, the way he was, or my Black Ghost tank, the way he was chasing my barbs and stuff around. He's just the cranky old man that shouts, "Get off my lawn" at people, He snaps at them, he chases them, and as soon as they dart away from him, he stops. He's not trying to eat them, he's not trying to kill them, he's just being a cichlid, He's just sort of defending his territory. You get too close to him, he's going to snap at you. So once we're over the hump of the first few days of everybody getting used to everybody, I think we're in the clear as far as any more fish loss due to aggression. So this tank should just roll along smoothly. I don't really know at this point if I am going to add anything else to it. Now that I have 7 of those rainbow fish in there, they do get pretty big. They'll get 5 or 6 inches in length by the time they're full grown. It'll take a few years to get there, but they're going to be some fairly sizable fish, and this is a 40. And if I intend to keep this tank intact the way it is, I need to just allow for them to grow out. And so maybe if I do add anything to this tank, it'll be very cautiously, and it will be down the road at some point. At this point, I don't really have any intentions of putting anything in there. I know I said I was going to put an African butterfly fish or something similar in there, but I really don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to hold off on that and just let this tank ride for a little while. Besides, I got enough other projects and enough other things that I want to get done that I don't see any point in tinkering with this tank anymore until I've got some other stuff sort of out of my system and moved on with that. Speaking of moving on, let's go over here to my 125. This is another tank. We'll have to move back here and get on the other side of the room so we can see the whole thing. I think I'm going to do a water change on this tank today too. It's becoming a little bit dense in the middle there. If you look at all that floating, well, it's actually not really floating anymore. I've got it tucked under this piece of wood, the root mass, so that sort of anchors it in place. And then that is basically one large water sprite. But you can see all these roots down at this end. These are roots off of new plants. You can see all those sort of dense, sort of the epicenter where the roots all come together. Those are new plants that I can tease out of there. So I'm going to have to do that. And this one actually here is already completely separated itself. It's detached and is a completely free-floating new plant all by itself right there. I will probably also have to get in there, and you can see where, you know, some of these branches have come way down here. They're just getting too long and too big and bushy, and from time to time I have to get in there and do a little bit of grooming. I used to just tear the big plants out and let the little ones start regrowing, but I changed my way of doing it, and I started leaving the big plant alone and then just taking the babies away from it. And I like it a lot better that way. I get this really, really big, beautiful plant. Spreads a big umbrella across the top of the tank, gives all the fish a nice sense of security. It gives me nice shadowing and shading. It gives a nice green effect in the tank. I really, really like the way the water sprite in there grows, but it grows so fast I constantly have to be in there tearing that stuff out. So that is on the agenda for stuff I need to get done this week as well. I need to do a big water change. I want to wipe the glass down. The last time I did a big water change in this tank, I once again started getting this little bit of diatom algal growth on the glass. So it's time to get in there and wipe that down. And this time I'm not going to do such a massive water change, but it is going to be a lot of cleaning type water change. I'm not just going to swap a whole lot of water out. I'm going to do some plant grooming. I'm going to wipe the glass down. I might even do a filter change. It's probably getting about time to do one on that, on this filter too. I don't really remember the last time I did one, so that's usually a pretty good indication it's time to do another one. I usually do them from about every month to 6 weeks, maybe 2 months. I know time gets away from me, like I was just complaining a little while ago, so giving myself the benefit of the doubt, let's just say 2 months is probably the limit. I doubt I've ever gone that far between filter maintenances, but you never know. We'll say 2 months is my limit. I shoot for a month to 6 weeks between filter changes. This is the camera that I've actually got video sitting on right now that I don't think I'm going to use because it was the video I was talking about where I wandered all over the place and talked about lighting and got all complicated and confusing. So it is still sitting on the camera. I just don't know if I'm actually going to upload it and use it or I'm going to reshoot. So again, look forward to that. I do have a video about lighting coming out here real soon. My crayfish tank is the last but not least on our tour. And nothing's going on in here really. I did lose a crayfish this week. I shot a little update video on that. One of the larger ones, the one that originally had one claw, is now gone. The medium-sized crayfish that started with 2 claws, lost a claw, is now regrowing its lost claw and is certainly the dominant crayfish in the tank. And I know everybody's all in hiding. I turned the light on right before I started shooting this video, and of course they all scattered and hid. And once I put food in the tank, they'll come back out. Here I can give you a little look at this one here. Well, sort of. He's kind of behind that plant. Let's try to get a look down this way. You can see him a little better maybe through the glass. So that is the second to the smallest, and he's actually probably sloughed once or twice by now because you can see he's getting pretty good size too. My plants are looking good. I've got new growth on the sensitive fern. I've got some new growth coming in on the hosta. The creeping jenny that I've got is doing really well, as I expected it would. It is getting chewed up at the water level though. The crayfish, it's not really laying on the water or going down into the water, because as soon as it gets in the water, the crayfish munch on it. They really like their veggies. They will eat a lot of plants. And there's the big one that's actually starting to grow his one claw back. He's got the prime real estate, and you can see that claw right there on our left. His right is his little tiny new claw that's starting to grow in with the little red tips on it. His big claw is sort of behind that rock and we can't see it at the moment. I do want to go down to the stream today and try to catch a couple little minnows or sculpins or something else to put in this tank that would be just a little added interest, a little bit of something to look at, something for the crayfish to hunt and catch. I know it's a very small amount of water, so if I do put any fish in there, they're going to have to be very small fish with a very small bioload. And again, they're probably not going to last very long. Such tight quarters, it won't be long at all before those crayfish catch and eat those fish. So we'll do some more video of this one coming up this week. Like I keep saying, I've just been outside a lot. I've been trying to get out and do outdoorsy stuff while I've still got the nice summer weather. So just be patient. We'll get plenty of video of this coming up. And I don't know if I'm going to keep this tank up and running over winter, or this is just going to be a summer project or what. So stay tuned for that. This is going to be something. At any rate, I will continue shooting video of it as long as I've got it. So as long as you're subscribed, you won't miss any of the videos. And if I do replace it, it'll get replaced with something else fun. I'm always doing something different down here. So there we go. That's all the way around the world, back to where we started at my 29 miscellaneous. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you subscribed if you're not already. That way, as I said, you won't miss anything I've got coming up. And I do always have lots of stuff in the works. So thanks for watching this one, and I will see you real soon on the next one.